and I'm an immigration attorney. Today I'm going to talk to you about options to travel, or how you can travel, or if indeed you can travel if you're a green card holder or conditional green card holder, or if you're here on a visa or a student here on a visa, or you have an application pending. This is the holiday time period. It's December, and a lot of people are wondering if they can take this time to go back home to travel and what their options are. So first I should say that if you do want to travel during the holiday time period, right now would be a little too late because if you are seeking something called a travel permit, then there are various kinds, or permission to travel. You generally need to plan a few months in advance. So I would say think about the beginning of the year, because these type of applications can take a while. So if this is something you hadn't planned for before, this is information that you can certainly use for the upcoming year in figuring out if you can travel. And of course, for people who are here on visas, it's a little bit more different. Your travel options, you might have a bit more travel options. So let's begin with what options are available to people who are green card holders versus people who have applications pending, and then also students, because we get a lot of requests about that. So if you're a green card holder or a conditional green card holder, these are for people who have a 2-year green card, and then at some point they need to apply for a 10-year green card. Technically, you can travel whenever you want, right, if you have a green card. However, there are certain situations in which you also may need to apply for something called a re-entry permit, a refugee document, or even advanced parole. And generally, the reason for this is when you're a green card holder, you have to prove to USCIS and the US government that you have an intent to maintain your residence here in the United States. So if you're traveling all the time, or you're traveling for more than 6 months or more than a year, when you go to apply for citizenship, or even before that, let's say you're outside of the United States for several years, you may have a difficult time returning back into the United States, even if you have a green card, because you haven't been in the United States for a certain amount of time. So CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, they may think that you don't intend to live in the United States, you don't intend to maintain your residence. And in these kind of situations, sometimes you may have to apply for a resident visa, even if you have a green card, to come back. So how do you avoid that kind of situation? So if you're a green card holder, whether you have the 10-year green card or the 2-year green card, my advice to you is, if you want to travel, not just for 1 week or a few days during the holiday period, but let's say a few months or a year, generally like a year or more, to apply for a re-entry permit. So a re-entry permit allows you to be outside of the United States for up to 2 years. And it's great because you can be outside for 2 years and not have to worry about having any trouble when you're back, and not having to apply for a returning resident visa. And that's a really great option, because you want to avoid having to do all of that extra work. And this will allow you to come back. So one of the good things to know is that the re-entry permit, takes away all of the worries you may have. You can be outside for 2 years, and then you can return without any issues, without having to go to an embassy and apply for a visa. What you should keep in mind is that this generally cannot be extended. So if you've already been granted one, you most likely won't be getting another one. So in these type of situations, I would recommend consulting with an immigration attorney and potentially applying for your citizenship. So then once you have your citizenship, you can travel however often you want to travel without having to worry about taking all of these extra measures. So re-entry permit, for you to remember, is usually when you want to travel for more than a year, up to 2 years, and it's valid for 2 years from whenever the date of issuance is on the permit. And you do have to apply for it before you leave. So the recommendation is, if you know you want to go outside of the United States for a while, definitely apply for it, get it, and then leave the United States. Another option that's available for green card holders and for people who aren't green card holders is a refugee travel document. So a refugee travel document is generally an option that's available to people who have asylee status or refugee status, or green card holders who applied and got their green card based on being a asylee or a refugee. So this is great because you can get it for up to a year, and unfortunately it cannot be extended, and you may have to apply for another one again. And it's also good because sometimes people who are asylees and refugees, they don't have passports, right? And without a travel document, you may be able to leave the United States, but you may not necessarily be able to re-enter. So this refugee travel document allows you to leave the United States, travel, and return back to the United States. So keep in mind, this is a good option for people who are asylees, refugees. It means you have been granted asylee status or refugee status, or you got your green card based on being an asylee or a refugee. There's another option, and this is one that many people know about, and it's called advanced parole. So advanced parole is great because it allows you to travel and return back to the United States without a visa. And it's great because it's also an option available to people who aren't green card holders. And they can apply for this whenever they have a pending I-485, which is the application to get your green card. Or it's also an option available to people who have asylum case pending. So the thing to know, there are a couple of things to know. If you have, let's start with asylum. If you have an asylum case pending, generally I recommend to not travel. That's a general recommendation that most immigration attorneys will give you. However, if there's an emergency situation or something that necessitates for you to travel, you should apply for advanced parole as soon as you feel the need to, because it can take several months to come in. The thing for you to note is you cannot travel back to the country where you fear persecution. Otherwise, then you will be abandoning your asylum application. So that's very important to keep in mind if you're going to apply for advanced parole. But it is still an option that is available to you, even though we recommend that you do not travel and don't apply for this unless you really, really need to. This is generally used by people, as I said earlier, who have a green card application pending. It could be based on an underlying spouse petition, a employment petition, various kinds of thing. And the thing is that you can apply for advanced parole when you submit that green card application, the I-485, at the same time. And you can also submit it later while it's still pending. So it's good. And you generally apply for it before you leave for the United States. And if you do have an adjustment of status, a green card application pending, you must apply for the advanced parole before leaving the United States. Otherwise, you're going to abandon that underlying application, and you don't want to abandon that. Additionally, if you leave before you get a decision on the advanced parole application, that can also be considered abandoned, and then you may not be able to return to the United States. So this means if you know you want to travel and you have a pending green card application or an asylum application, apply first for the advanced parole. Apply if you can at the same time as you apply for the green card application, or apply while it's pending, but it could take about 8 months or so. Right now, that's the time frame it's taking to come in, so just keep that in mind in planning for that. So that's the option that you have available to you. Advanced parole is also an option that's available for people who have TPS and for people who have DACA. The great thing is for people who have TPS, you can leave with advanced parole, and it doesn't break the physical presence requirement that you need for TPS. And for people who are DACA recipients, they can apply for advanced parole, and generally it's for urgent humanitarian reasons or for educational or employment opportunities. When you apply for advanced parole or any of these the reentry permit or the refugee document, you have to give your reason for why you want to apply for it, and also provide the evidence. For advanced parole, you don't really have to go in significant depth. You can state, you can go for personal reasons or business reasons, even if it is just to visit family. But depending on the underlying application, let's say it's asylum, then you need to really demonstrate the urgent need for it. And the application that you would use for this is called the I-131. This covers all three: the reentry permit, the refugee document, and the advanced parole. Just make sure you know which one it is that you're applying for. Additionally, there are different fees for each of these, depending on which one you're applying for. So for the reentry permit, you will be paying around $575 to $660 with biometrics, depending on the age group that you fall into. And for the refugee travel document, the price ranges from $105 to $220, depending again on the age range that you fall into. And if you're applying for the advanced parole, it's $575. But if you apply for it, when you are applying for the green card application, the I-485 at the same time, or you have one pending, that first initial application, you don't have to pay a fee. The fee gets waived. So this is a great benefit for you to know. If you apply for the I-131 at the same time as the I-485, the green card application, or you have one pending and you show that you paid the fee for the I-485, the green card application, you don't need to pay the fee for your first advanced parole document. So that's very important for you to know, and it's actually a really great benefit. So these are the options that are available to you for people who are green card holders, conditional permanent residents, and also people who have pending applications. Of course, if you're here on let's say an L1 visa or H1B, etc., certain visas, O visas, you don't need to apply for advanced parole or any of these things. Those visas allow you to travel, so there aren't limitations on that. Those things are tied to the type of visa that you have, and it's a different type of scenario, and of course you can travel. Another question that we usually get and that comes up often is for students: can students travel? Certainly yes. If you're on an F1 visa and you're a student, you can travel during the holiday time period. Just make sure that your F1 is visa, and if you're going to be traveling for less than 5 months, come back with a valid F1 visa, come back with some documents proving that you're in school, you have financial resources, and make sure you have the I-20, the service form I-20 with the authorization from the designating school official authorizing you to travel. And you have to apply for that in advance. So plan for that before, and so that you have that and you don't have any issues in returning. So these are various options that are available to you, to students. I highly recommend that you start planning way in advance if you can. And then of course, if there's an emergency situation that comes up, depending on your circumstances, you may possibly be able to get emergency permission to travel. Let's say you have a pending application, you already submitted the application for the advanced parole, and 5 or 6 months have gone by. Can you get emergency advanced parole? Yes, you can, but it has to be for extreme circumstances. There has to be a medical reason or urgent business reason. You have to provide documentation showing the urgent need for you to get that advanced parole so you can travel back. We have had clients apply for emergency advanced parole, and we were able to get it for them in a week or so, depending on the circumstance. A good example, definitely medical reasons. If there's urgent medical reason, that's a good one, and if you have the supporting documentation. But even if, let's say, you're here and you have a green card application pending, based on a spouse petition, an approved spouse petition, or a concurrent spouse petition, and you have a business in a foreign country and you need to go and you need to travel, certainly yes. Let's say you can show an upcoming conference or urgent need. You can provide all the documents, you can get an appointment with the USCIS, and you can get the advanced parole approved. So yes, in certain situations, you can get emergency advanced parole, but don't rely on that. You really do have to provide evidence of the urgent need. So the best practice is to apply way in advance of when you need to travel. The other thing to keep in mind is advanced parole is great. If you get it, you can make multiple entries. Generally, people who apply for advanced parole at the same time that they apply for work authorization, they'll have one card. So this card allows you to make multiple trips. So you're not limited to just one trip. You can put it down when you're in the application if you want it for just one trip, but my recommendation is put it down that you want it for multiple trips, so you don't have to keep applying for one, especially since it takes a while to get it. So this way you can make multiple trips. This kind of sums up your options that are available to you, and things that you have to keep in mind. And again, I'll repeat, if you're a green card holder, it's really, really important that you don't travel for more than a year without applying for a re-entry permit or some sort of permission to come back, right, or advanced parole, because you don't want to face the issue of not being allowed back in. And you certainly don't want to leave the United States for more than a year or several years without coming back. And in that kind of situation, a re-entry permit is not going to help. If it's more than 2 years, you may have to apply for a returning resident visa. Or we have had unique situations where people have been outside of the United States. They have had a green card several years, like 5-6 years have passed, and they want to return, but they can't apply for the returning resident visa, and they have to all over again have somebody petition for them to get a green card. So you want to avoid being in that kind of situation. I think that kind of sums up the relevant information that you need to know about this. If you have further questions about this, of course, you can contact us and we'll provide more information in either a further discussion, live discussion, or one of our blog posts. Having said that, does anybody have any questions for us? Or for me? All right, if there are no further questions, I'll end this live discussion over here. If you have certain questions or topics that you'd like me to address in future live discussions, you can always contact us on Facebook or send us an email, and we will try to address it in future live discussions. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday in this holiday period, and I look forward to seeing you in future live discussions. And of course, you can always visit our website at www.caliculaw.com and go through our blog posts to find other relevant information related to this topic and to other topics. All right, have a good night and take care, and thank you so much everybody for joining me today. We just have a quick question over here. Do I recommend traveling? As I said earlier, I generally don't recommend traveling if you have a pending asylum application, but if you urgently need to travel, then you can apply for advanced parole and wait for it to get granted. Do not leave until you get that granted, and do not return to the country where you fear persecution, because that will definitely be a big problem for your asylum application and it'll be deemed abandoned. All right, are there any other questions? Perfect. So in that case, have a good night, and thank you everybody for joining me today, and I'll see you next time on our next live discussion. Take care.